It has been 365 days since I decided to take a break from drinking. And today is day 365, which means I've given myself permission to have a glass, maybe 2 glasses of champagne. And honestly, as I'm recording this, I still haven't decided yet if I'm going to do that. Because here's the thing. This did not start for me as like a journey into sobriety. In fact, I don't use that word, but there was something going on with alcohol and me that I couldn't ignore. And it's not your traditional story. It's not the kind of story that you think of when you consider or when you hear about someone who's decided to like stop drinking. So the trigger for me was vacation. It wasn't a rock bottom. I hadn't been in a car accident. I hadn't gotten a DUI. I hadn't woke up one morning and not remembered what I had said. No one had said to me, you're messy when you're drinking. I'm not. It was none of those things. And yet I knew something was going on, and I could just sense that I didn't feel good about how often and how much I had suddenly started drinking. So it was on vacation. My husband and I were in Europe last year, and I knew that we were going to visit friends in London. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I'm like, I woke up one morning after having too many bottles of expensive champagne. And my face was puffy. I didn't feel like myself. I felt groggy. Wasn't like incredibly hungover or anything like that. It wasn't like I'd been sick. It wasn't, again, there was no like major catalyst. There was nothing dramatic, but it was a low level of not feeling good about myself that I recognized that morning. I wonder if this is the alcohol. We had never been like big drinkers per se. In fact, I'd never even considered about taking like, a 30-day break, or when people do like dry January or whatever. I'd never done that because I didn't have a drinking problem. So in my mind, the only people who take a break from drinking are people who have an issue with it and they can't stop, or it's becoming a problem for them. That's, in my mind, I was like, okay. Or they're like doing a 30-day challenge and they have like nothing going on at that time. I'd had lots of friends who were doing 30-day challenge and they would be like, hey, do you want to do it? And I'd be like, no, I don't think so, because I have a such and such on such and such day. And I know that's like the whole point of it. But for me, I was just like, I never thought of myself as one of those people that needs to take a break. And I think part of that was like just this ignorance that I didn't understand that it's not as black and white as we make it seem when it comes to alcohol. So I take this break, and the break, honestly, when people are like, what was your motivation? What was your why? My why was I was trying to get my face to not look so puffy and my eyes to look so red, and my skin just like wasn't looking good. And I didn't feel good about myself. Now, I didn't tell anyone that, and I didn't tell my husband that, but I did say to him, I think I'm going to take like the next 7 days, and we're just like, I'm not going to drink at all. I don't know how you feel about this, but like, I feel like I should probably at least go like 7 days, no alcohol. And you're thinking to yourself, if you can't, like, if you have to go do a 7-day challenge, like maybe there was a problem, maybe, but also we were in Europe where you're going out to dinner every single night and you're in wine country. I mean, we were in France most of our trip. We're in the area where they make champagne, and champagne is our beverage of choice at the time. So we decided to take this break, and I was kind of shocked at how much I was thinking about it, like day 2, day 3. And I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my husband. I didn't tell a soul, because I thought, I'm not going to go 7 days. I'm going to have to sneak a drink or something. And I'm certainly have no intentions of going beyond this. But what I didn't tell anyone is how troubling it was to me that I was thinking about it as much as I was. We traveled to London, and I remember going out to a nice restaurant late in the evening, the type of restaurant where the lights are dimmed and there's just like beautiful ambient lighting, candles on every table, white linen tablecloths, women and men like all dressed up It's a beautiful date night. I'm wearing a beautiful dress. My husband's sitting across from me. And the waiter came to the table to take our order for a late dinner. And the thought of ordering a late dinner without a drink was so weird. And I just kept thinking to myself, oh, you must have a problem. Like, if you really are thinking about it this much, what is going on? So we order a dinner, I order a sparkling water, and I'm noticing how I feel like I'm watching a movie of somebody else's really fun life, and I'm not living it. Like, my thought was, should we just like maybe cut back? But I decided not to do that. And here's why. Because once I started struggling, like in the first like 3 or 4 days, and when I say struggling, like going, oh my God, why am I thinking about this so much? I started immersing myself in what they call quit lit. Quit lit is a term that's used to describe books and podcasts, literature, if you will, about quitting drinking. And one of the first books that I picked up was by author Annie Grace, who I've had on my podcast before. And it's called The Naked Mind. I listen to it on Audible. I love Audible books. That book really was what I had to like keep myself busy listening to that to understand why it was my brain wanted to be busy thinking about drinking. I also found this obscure, I think it was like a podcast or maybe it was an audio series from this gal named Belle. And I think her series was actually called Thinking About Drinking. And just like immersing myself into somebody else's story of like what they experienced in those first couple of weeks was so, so helpful. I'm like, okay, I'm going to make it 7 days. We're going to make it. We made it 7 days. We get to London. And then I'm like, okay, that wasn't so bad. And the 8th day got a little bit easier and the 10th day got a little bit easier. And I'm like, okay, let's try to go a couple of weeks. Let's try to go until we get home. But everywhere we went, there was this constant reminder that alcohol is a part of the experience. I mean, we're in London and we're walking past these like really super cool pubs and great restaurants, and people are recommending places for us to go and things for us to do. And everything seemed like it revolved around alcohol. And the fact that we weren't doing that kind of felt like, are we really fully experiencing what we paid for this amazing vacation to experience and what we've been looking forward to if we're not like doing all the things that people do when they're in this particular location? Like we went to an amazing horse race where everyone's dressed up with beautiful hats and dresses and everyone is drinking. And I so desperately wanted to not even sneak, I just wanted to have champagne. Now, my husband is kind of a take it or leave it kind of drinker. I figured this out now. Actually, I kind of figured it out before I decided to take the break. Because what I noticed is when we were sitting at dinner or when we were drinking, I was acutely aware of how much the waiter was pouring in his glass versus mine. And I would do that thing where like, if they poured him more than me, I'd be like, and switch, right? And oopsie, we make a little joke about it, but I really wasn't joking. Like I wanted more than him in my glass. And I'm 5'2", I'm a small human. And Brett is, 6 foot. I don't know how much he weighs, but he's twice my size. And I was drinking as much as him. So we would get a bottle of champagne and we would split it. Now in a bottle like this, to split it is probably a little less than 2 glasses each. That's no big deal. So we might do 2 bottles over the course of a long night, maybe, right? Which end up being 4 glasses for him and 4 glasses for me. But I'm a much smaller person than him. And what I noticed is it wasn't getting me buzzed the way it once did. It just felt like drinking water, frankly. And then I'd be like almost annoyed, like, gosh, I don't feel anything. And so I would want more. I knew that wasn't a good sign. I knew that my interest, my tolerance, and the amount that I was drinking wasn't going down. It was slowly going up. I'll link to the video that I did when I first announced, I think I was like at the 2-week mark that I told people I was taking the break. And I really did that to keep myself accountable because I just didn't know if without accountability, I would stick to my guns. So again, I was noticing these behaviors of my own and feeling low level shame, but not admitting it to myself. I'm a health and fitness expert. My mission is to help women understand their potential in the second half of their life, to understand, like, girl, this is the after party. Like, this is the best time of your life. Like, we have so much to look forward to. And now you're not getting your period. And you can be in the IDGAF era where it's like almost anyone who gives you some slack, you're like, I'm older than you. What are you trying to tell me? Like, it's this amazing feeling. And it's just like this light switch that happens. And I love helping women age powerfully. And I talk to them about, how do you do that? How do you optimize your health? I mean, not so you can live to be 180 unless that's your goal, but so that you feel powerful, so that you're strong. And I talk to them about the nutrients that they should be consuming, how to lift weights, how to improve their bone density, how to improve their cognition, how to avoid getting cancer. And there was this cognitive dissonance when it came to alcohol. I didn't want to hear it. There's this Andrew Huberman podcast, and I love listening to his content. There's a lot of other biohackers who I love listening to their content, but if they did an episode on alcohol, I'd be like, oh, I don't need that one. Skip that one. Just in case, out of fear that I would hear something that would be discouraging. I would hear something that would make me realize I have no business calling myself a leader, calling myself a person who wants to help women to live and age powerfully if I'm also drinking. And I wasn't hiding it. I would talk to people about, like, not all alcohols are created equal. You want to drink in moderation. I believed I was a light drinker. But do you know that a light drinker is someone who is doing basically 1 glass of wine per day? But that 1 glass is based on a restaurant pour of between 4 and 5 ounces. But the average home pour is like almost double that. So that means if you're doing like 2 glasses at home, you're doing like 4 times the amount of what is typically a light drinker. And I'll put those statistics up on the screen so you can, in case I got them wrong. But the bottom line is there was a lot of ignorance, intentional ignorance going on. And I was searching for anyone who I looked up to in the field of health and fitness, who I also knew drank, at least socially, to justify what I was doing. I'm like, well, look at that person. They're super healthy. They're an icon in fitness. They're an icon in the health space. And look, they're drinking. So I was like, noticing that I was justifying their behavior and my behavior. But in the first week, when I just immersed myself in most recent research on alcohol, I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I can't go back. Like, now I know. Now I know what it's doing to my brain. Now I know I'm putting myself at a much higher risk of getting 7, 8 different types of cancer. Now I know what it's doing to my leaky gut. Now I know what it's doing to my body's ability to absorb nutrients. Now I know there's nothing about drinking, even on occasion, that has anything to do with health. In fact, it's a subtraction, right? And listen, before you go there, I'm not saying I'll never drink again. In fact, that's what I need to tell you now, is that early on in this journey, probably like by day, I don't know. No, it was actually quite far into the journey. For months, I struggled with, like, will I ever drink again? What do I call myself? Do I say I'm sober? Do I say I'm sober curious? Do I say I'm California sober? Because I did experiment with like THC gummies. Like, I wanted that, like, come down. I wanted to feel relaxed in the evening. I wanted that feeling. I wanted to feel that kind of warm, delicious, relaxed. All my cares are fuzzy now. I wanted to feel that. I missed that. And I think a lot of the books that I was reading and other people I've listened to who talk about, taking some time off of alcohol, they just paint the whole picture like everything is amazing, that they felt better, and that, alcohol, they realized that alcohol didn't ever make them feel better, and they realized that alcohol was just numbing the pain. But listen, I've gone a year. I can tell you I'm never going to be a drinker again, but I can't tell you that I'll never have a drink again. If I have a drink again, maybe I'll have one tonight. We'll decide by the end of this video. Things will be different. But there's a part of me that also realizes that if I have one drink, no, I don't think so. I started to say, could I slip back into it? But I won't. I won't because I know better and I'm no longer dependent upon it. Because there's been a million situations where no one would know. Oh my gosh, I'm going to tell you this. This is a true story. I haven't told anybody. No one. My husband had to stay back in California, and I came here to Miami by myself for like 5 days. And I thought to myself, I'm giving myself permission to drink anytime I want. My measure is I'm only going to drink if I think it might make things better and I won't feel worse the next day. So I was like, he's gone. I just want to test myself and see how I feel the next day. Do I wake up thinking about it? Do I wake up craving it? Does it get me drunk really fast? Do I feel it faster? Have I lost my taste for it? Will it taste good? Like all these things. So I bought a little thing of like, I don't know, what are those called? Like a little tiny wine bottle. And the first night I didn't have any. The second night I didn't have any. Third night I was like, should I have some tonight? And I cracked it open and I smelled it. And I was like, I don't know. I got it from like the little, like across the street, what do you call it? Mart or whatever. And I was like, I bet this is just loaded with toxins. I don't even want it. Literally, I'm like, if I am going to have a glass of champagne or a glass of wine, I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to make sure it's the least toxic of toxic drinks. And yeah, there's no alcohol that has any health benefits. There's no alcohol that's good for you. But I think we can all agree that there are some that are far more toxic than others. So if I am going to choose to have a glass of alcohol, if I am going to choose to have a drink, my measures are, is it going to make whatever it is I'm doing better? Will I feel better the next day or not worse for it? And if I am going to have a drink, I'm going to make sure it's the least toxic. I want to share with you some of the things that I was not expecting to happen during the last year. I wasn't expecting that sex would be so much better. In fact, the first month or so, I was so confused. I was like, wait, the sex is better. I don't understand. But it was just kind of weird getting to I don't know. It was an adjustment. I'm going to tell you that. But just because I was like, wait, so we're getting into bed and neither of us have a buzz. I'm just being honest. Neither of us have a buzz. So am I as free? Do you know what I mean? Is he going to be as free? Are my inhibitions up? And they weren't. And the sensations are much more intense when you're not numbing it with alcohol. So the sex, a trillion times better. I would say that was one of the things that's a major bonus. Another major bonus is I don't have any weird, low level, difficult to pinpoint why I don't feel good anxiety anymore. I didn't realize it until I had gone, I don't know, maybe just a couple of weeks without drinking. Then I'm like, oh, so I wasn't feeling too proud of who I was when I was drinking. I didn't hide it. And I didn't allow myself to think about it much. But once I stopped, I was like, okay, you get it if you're somebody who is sober. If you're someone who stopped drinking, you're going to understand what I'm about to say. You just kind of feel like a superior human. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it. I know you're not supposed to say that. I did. I was like, I'm so proud of me. That was hard and I did it. And not only was that hard, it's one of those things where you realize once you give it up that it's freaking everywhere. It's everywhere. And it's an expectation. People expect you to drink. People expect that you're going to have a cocktail. People expect that you're going to, and they're surprised sometimes when you don't. Another surprising thing is I learned pretty early on that it wasn't the alcohol. I was craving so much. And I know everybody's different. And I'm not suggesting that you can stop without help, without the assistance of a program or a sponsor, et cetera. I mean, this is just what worked for me. But I was pretty surprised to figure out that it wasn't the alcohol so much that I was missing and that I was addicted to, but I was addicted to the ceremony. I was addicted to the thought that, okay, when we open up a bottle of champagne, when we pour a drink, it means work is done. I'm done thinking about work. I'm done talking about work. I'm done trying to work. And as someone who struggled with work addiction in the past, it was kind of like a nice off switch. And because I wasn't drinking, I'm like, what do I use as my off switch? And I tried all the things that other people have suggested. Eventually, I landed on just creating a very specific mocktail. I'll share the recipe with you, but for me, it's like the sting and the bubbles of the champagne is what I loved. So doing like a non-alcoholic champagne, I'm like, this is grape juice. It was like, it didn't cut it. And none of the non-alcoholic stuff worked for me at all. And I've talked to lots of people who have taken a break or quit completely, and everybody's different. So don't give up. Keep experimenting. Keep playing. Maybe it is a little bit of THC. Maybe it is microdosing, I don't know, something else. Maybe it is finding a non-alcoholic IPA or whatever. I don't know what that's going to be for you, but for me, I needed something with a bite, something with sting. And so what I eventually, like right now, I'm craving it. My mouth is watering. I can't wait to have it, is I do sugar-free ginger beer mixed with a sparkling apple cider strawberry lemon or strawberry ginger. And then I put in a squeeze of cayenne pepper, maybe some cucumbers. I mean, like if I really want to go fancy, I put a bunch of stuff in it. But otherwise, I'll just pour those two drinks over some ice and I put a little dropper of cayenne pepper in it. And it's like sparkling and kind of sweet. And it's got that like kick from the cayenne pepper drops. And I freaking love it. And it just tells my brain, okay, you're off duty. You're no longer working. And it took me a while to figure that out. And I wondered how long I would kind of need that. And I'm just a creature of habit. Like I need a cup of coffee every morning to say, it's time to start your day. Do I drink the whole cup of coffee? No. Is it giving me that caffeine buzz? No. But it's like the habit of it. And so having that evening drink is something I'm still doing a year later. Two more surprising things happened. I wasn't expecting to get hooked on sugar. I would read about other people who, they would give up their evening alcohol and they'd switch to sweets. I'm like, well, that won't be me. Well, it was, especially for about the first 6 months. 6 months, I was doing a lot more sugar, not intentionally, but like before I knew, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like the treat I'm going for at night. And I've since broke the habit. And I still have a sweet tooth and I still have sweets at night, but now I have a way of kind of rewarding that sweet tooth without doing it with sugar. So if that's something you're struggling with, like maybe you just want to give up the sugar, I've been able to do that. And I'd love to break that down for you, exactly how I did it. And at the same time, still treating myself to these yummy desserts and sweets, but they're sugar-free and also, in some cases, have a nice healthy dose of fiber and protein. So if you want me to break that down, I will. The other thing that was a really nice surprise is seeing all of my health markers increase. My strength gains, my cognition, I've got more clarity, I've got more energy. Just seeing initially seeing my levels improve in terms of my hormones, my body composition, and knowing that like all of the things that I'm doing are going to improve my enzymes, are going to improve my gut permeability, and all of those markers, like seeing them when I do blood tests is really exciting. So, and I get this question all the time. People say, well, what doctor can I go to look at these things? Because when I go in for an annual checkup, they don't run any of those tests. Yeah. Unfortunately, I will say that for a lot of people, they don't have access to that through their insurance. Because sometimes insurance companies, they just don't cover those things. And for many of us, it's hard to find a doctor who actually does like longevity visits. That's what I call this. It's like, I don't buy purses. I don't buy expensive shoes. I don't buy expensive jewelry. What I like to spend my money on are things that help me to age powerfully. So like I'll do hyperbaric oxygen or to do a DEXA scan to look at, to actually you have a scan that tells me my bone density, tells me my body fat level, to look at my hormone levels. Like all of these things relate to living and aging powerfully, aging well, if you will. And it's hard to find doctors who specialize in that type of care. I will say, I recently discovered that the company that I've referred many of you to for women's hormone health, which is Midi Health, they offer an age well consultation. So that means all of those markers, all those things that you can't get your doctor to prescribe for you, like a DEXA scan or blood panels or looking at your hormone panels, any of those things, you can book an age well appointment through Midi Health. If you're already a Midi customer, that's awesome. If you're not, just go to Chalene.com/Midi, MIDI. What I love about Midi, which is unique for some of you are paying way too much for your longevity appointments as it is. I mean, you can pay up to $2,000 for a concierge doctor. With Midi, it's super duper affordable, and they work with almost every single major health insurance company in the nation. This is a company that is devoted to helping women age powerfully. So may I recommend to you, if you're thinking about quitting, or maybe you've quit and you want to see how you're aging, or maybe you're just starting this journey. You want to get a sense of like your markers, where like a baseline. Book yourself an age well appointment. They have consultants in every single state, all 50 states. And again, they accept most insurance. So check it out. It's just one of those, like, that's where I want to spend my money. Like now I see someone carrying an expensive purse. I'm like, what is that going to do for your life? You know what I mean? I know I used to have them, but anyways, now that's where I like to spend my money. What does that mean for me? It means I do the extras. I do the supplements. I watch my hormones. I do my DEXA scan. I'm spending my money on things that help me to age well. I've got multiple gym memberships, and to make these things affordable, I recommend Midi. Go to Chalene.com/Midi, MIDI. I was also surprised that nobody really cared. I was so freaked out at first, like, oh my God, do I tell my friends? Do I tell my friends? Do I tell these people in advance? Do I show up early before everybody gets there? Like, if there were times when I was worried that I would make other people uncomfortable, then I would arrive early to an event and I would go to the bartender and I would ask him to make me a fancy mocktail. And then nobody asks, nobody cares. Or I would say, I would just have an excuse and I would just say, oh yeah, I'm not drinking tonight, which was true. And I've heard stories of people going like, what? You're not drinking? I didn't get any of that. Not one person at least not one person said anything to me that made me feel awkward. What I did find, however, is when I would talk about it, not in a setting where everybody was drinking, but just talk about it generally with friends or other people, even in my social media, people get so defensive. I know, because I was there too. And they'll say things like, well, I mean, oh, that's so good for you. I mean, we rarely drink. I mean, we drink a couple times a week. I used to say that too, because there were some weeks we drank a couple times a week. And there were some weeks when we drank almost every single night. And the point is, even if you're just drinking a couple of nights a week, it's still really, really bad for you. So like, you don't have to justify it. It's just a decision. And I'm not anti-alcohol. I'm not suggesting you need to stop drinking alcohol, but I am suggesting that if you've got even an inkling of some of the things I've talked about, if you've got this like, like I do understand it's not helping me to live better. It's not making me age more powerfully. And I guess I do kind of feel like I need it in a lot of situations. I am saying like, just take a little break and see what that does for you. I love hearing that so many of you saw my very first video and it inspired you to take a complete break. And now your relationship with alcohol has completely changed. Like now you drink a couple of times a year. I mean, I don't even consider that a drinker, right? Like you don't even have to say you drink a couple times a year. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you're not a regular drinker anymore. And that is phenomenal. I don't care what anybody says. And there's a lot of things we do that aren't good for us, right? Like, I mean, hairspray, makeup, like I'm sure there's toxic ingredients all over my house. I'm not obsessive that way. I try to do enough healthy things to balance them out, but it was me actually looking at like, okay, so this probably is not great for me, but it's not a known carcinogen. And this is a known carcinogen, alcohol. So if I choose to have a glass of champagne or a cocktail, whatever it might be, I need to do so knowing the risks. I didn't allow myself to understand how bad it was for me. I intentionally stayed ignorant, and I wasn't honest with myself with how often and how much we were consuming. We weren't regular drinkers. We were social drinkers. And then once the kids were gone and we were empty nesters, and I think this is really quite common for many midlife women. Now the kids are gone. So we don't feel as guilty having a drink at home because they're not there. We're setting an example. When they're little, we know we're setting an example for them, but now they're gone. And now for some women, they're dealing with symptoms of hormones and maybe depression, changing their identity. And so you turn to a glass of champagne or a glass of wine in the evenings or a cocktail. And then you realize, oh, we're going out with our friends more often because we don't have to go to basketball practice and we don't have anybody to pick up from choir. And so now you have fewer and fewer obligations. So you end up being more social. And then the next thing you know, you're drinking socially because you're being far more social. I think for a lot of midlife women, they're using alcohol to self-medicate because they haven't had a proper diagnosis, because they don't realize a lot of the things that they're experiencing with their mood, depression, anxiety relates to their hormones. And so they're using something to kind of numb it and feel better. I totally get that. But did you know that menopausal symptoms, hormonal symptoms, perimenopausal symptoms included, are all made much worse by the consumption of alcohol? And it doesn't help us sleep. Most women, as they're experiencing a decline in hormones, I think it's something like 80% of them report that they have sleep disturbances. And so, you drink a couple glasses of wine and you're like, okay, now I'm relaxed, I can go to sleep. But you're not getting good sleep. You're not getting deep sleep. You're not getting restorative sleep. And at the same time, you're actively shrinking your brain.
In fact, it actually scales with the amount of alcohol that people drink. Almost a dose-dependent increase in shrinkage of the gray matter volume and in these white matter tracts, these axons, these wires as it would, that connect different neurons as a function of how much alcohol people drink. Probably the best amount of alcohol to drink would be 0 glasses per week or ounces per week. For those of you drinking low amounts of alcohol, make sure you're doing other things to promote your health. And for those of you that are drinking moderate, and certainly for those of you that are heavy drinkers, please do everything you can to move away from that and to quit entirely. But even for the moderate consumers of alcohol, you are going to want to be aware of some of the negative health effects and do things to offset those if indeed you're not going to stop drinking.
About midway through this process is when I finally realized, okay, I can give myself permission to have a drink, a cocktail. I'm never going to be a drinker. I've decided that. But I've also decided I'm going to give myself permission to have one when I want. And there were countless occasions where before the event, like maybe it was a wedding, a girls' trip. Like every single one of my girlfriends, like that was one of the funnest things that we would do on girls' trips is get tipsy and tell stories and gossip and dance and like do all the things. And so my fear was when I get together with my girlfriends, am I not going to have fun? Well, you know what? I'm going to give myself permission to drink if I want to, because it'll just be a special occasion. And multiple times I got together for girls' weekends and I did drink. I drank non-alcoholic mocktails and no one noticed and no one cared. And I still had a rip-roaring good time. I still was dancing and being inappropriate and making them laugh and laughing with them. And I just don't need it. And that is an amazing feeling. Even though I think a part of the reason why I'm happy about that and this works for me is because I am not an all or nothing person. And I believe that this is my opinion, my experience, the first 30 days, maybe even the first 60 days, maybe even the first 90 days, I've thought about it more often than I should because I was struggling with the idea of never again. Like the absolute of never having a drink felt kind of scary and it felt like control. And I'm an Enneagram 8. The worst thing in the world you could do is try to control me. And so once I realized like I control me and I can have a drink anytime I want, it was like, Wow. And also being able to say that to other people kind of made them feel a little less, I think, judged. And I know I shouldn't worry about that, but I do. I don't like making people feel like, okay, my choices need to be your choices because I don't know your life. I don't know what's a priority to you. I don't know all the things you're dealing with. And I don't want to put my beliefs, my ethics, my decisions on anybody else. However, I do believe I'm very passionate about making sure that women in particular have just all the information so you can make the right decision. Because I was fingers in my ears, did not intentionally not hearing the information. So I was really making an ill-informed, intentionally ignorant decision. And so now it's exciting to know like, oh my God, I've given myself permission to drink tonight and I don't know if I will. And that's kind of cool. Like I'm literally going to wait until I'm done recording this, talking to you. It's day 365. I mean, Brett and I have already talked about it today. We're like, we freaking did it. Dude, that's insane. We didn't set out to do a year, but like we just passed the 1 year mark. I mean, we hit it today. And we've talked about like, okay, we'll be in Europe and we'll celebrate with a glass of champagne when that happens. But we're not in Europe because we have a lot of life stuff going on. And so we need to stay home. So it seems like more of an excuse than ever to like, okay, well, let's do it. Let's have a glass. But I don't know. And I think that's an amazing revelation that right now I'm not jonesing for that. I don't even know if I want it. I don't know that I would feel better tomorrow. And I kind of like letting these days stack up. I have accomplished my goal. Alcohol used to feel like a necessity. I used to go to certain environments and I couldn't even fathom doing that thing without alcohol. I couldn't imagine going out to dinner with a big group of people and not ordering a drink. I couldn't imagine leaving. I've seen people do this and I'm like, how do you do that? Leaving like a half a glass of wine in their glass and leaving the table, leaving the restaurant. I'm like, how did you not just throw that back? I couldn't imagine doing a wedding, a girls' trip, going out dancing, a yacht day. I couldn't imagine doing any of these things. Traveling. I couldn't imagine doing them without alcohol. I thought it was a necessity. And I've discovered it's not. And that was my goal all along. I was just like, I just don't want it to control me. I want to be in control. I want to have that kind of relationship. And here we are, a year later. I'm not saying you need to quit drinking alcohol entirely. But I am saying you deserve to know who you are without it. You deserve to be even more in love with yourself and proud of who you are and your decisions and how you feel without it. It's the coolest feeling. I want you to read the comments below this video because when I made this decision, that's what I did. I would scour comments under YouTube videos looking for anyone who said, I took a break and I hated it and I didn't feel better. And, like it was horrible and I hated it and I went back to drinking. I would search, just desperate to find like one person who had said that. The closest thing I would find to that is on occasion, I would find someone who said, I was sober for 4 years and then I started back up and it's the biggest regret that I've ever had. And I really thought I was missing out and I started drinking again and I really regret it and I got to get back to where I was. The closest thing I could find were people who did quit and they felt amazing, but they didn't stick to it. And now they're like, I'm watching this video because I need to do this again. I've not yet met one person who has said, yeah, my life was better with the alcohol. So there you go. You make an informed decision. I love you. I mean it. And I'll talk to you soon.